Well, joining us now are Elizabeth Burton-Phillips, who set up the charity DrugFam after her son Nick died of a heroin overdose. She's in High Wycombe, and with me here is Eliot Albers, the Executive Director of the International Network of People Who Use Drugs. And Mr. Albers, do you share the view that it would be a good thing if people were discouraged from using drugs? I mean, even if there are different ways of doing it.
No, drug use is and always has been a facet of human behaviour. We have seen over the last 140 years that an approach of repressive drug laws does not have any impact upon whether or not people will use drugs. We've seen that the drug law has been a complete and utter failure. What we need is policies based in health, in human rights, in harm reduction, and education. What we've seen recently, what we're living through now, is a catastrophe. It is a war fought on people who use currently illegal drugs.
Elizabeth Burton-Phillips, in your experience, though, the illegality of drugs didn't stop your own family tragedy, did it?
No, I think what really needs to be looked at very carefully is how you reach the young, because really facts do show that a lot of young people start smoking and using cannabis and move on to other drugs as a result of what they call or see as safe recreational experimentation. And it's really trying to reach the young to explain to them that there's a very swift path that can be taken between that so-called recreational drug use and addiction. So I am very strong on educating young people and indeed parents that, you know, it's a very, very dangerous business to put things into your body that are mind-altering, whether it's alcohol or drugs. Sadly, it didn't stop my son and many young people still have that approach, but I think it's a very, very important one that schools have to be guided on by the experts on the way to reach young people and to educate them away from trying drugs.
There was a debate on this matter today in the House of Commons, and a Conservative MP actually argued that the illegality of softer drugs, Class C drugs or Class B drugs like cannabis, actually is what creates the pathway to the more damaging drugs like heroin. Do you think there's any truth in that?
Well, I would say the evidence we as a charity have from the different support groups that we offer for family members who are very, very concerned about their loved ones using drugs, they all tell the same tale, that it is the cannabis, the skunk, that they're seeing changing the person that they once knew. And many of these young people or older people are showing symptoms of psychosis, mental illness and so on, coupled with drinking and using other drugs. And so the evidence from the family members, of course, is what we have. You know, that is a fact that I can say on behalf of the charity.
Is, as the Tory MP was suggesting, actually encouraged by criminalising cannabis?
The so-called gateway theory has been widely discredited. The fact is that most cannabis users do not go on to use heroin or cocaine or any other drugs. If you're going to point to a gateway drug, it might be alcohol or tobacco, which is far more widely used. But yes, as the MP pointed out, it is criminalisation that is causing most of the harms. In the tragedy that Elizabeth has been through, it is the fact of using a drug that is criminalised, not having access to, for example, naloxone, which is a reversal of overdose, that puts people in the way of much greater harm than they would otherwise be at.
Mrs. Burton-Phillips?
Yes, I understand, but
what do you think of that
argument? What I would like to say is, that I think we're missing the point here. You know, the dangers of cannabis and skunk, whether they lead on to other drugs or not, is really very, very important that we address the fact that there's so much evidence to show that young brains can be affected and damaged by using cannabis and skunk. So even if it stops there, you still have a generation of young people potentially who could be very, very ill, whether they touch
those people to criminalise them? That's the argument. Does it help those people to criminalise them?
I would say young people don't understand that aspect of the argument. They don't see what they're doing as a criminal offence. And it's when it moves on to the addiction process that we then are really in trouble. And the dealers, and I think the report shows that the dealers and the people who are trying to peddle this stuff are the ones that we need to be criminalising and making sure that they are, severely punished.
OK, if there was, in your view, Mr. Albers, if there was decriminalisation in this country of a wide section of drugs, do you think that would lead to an increase in consumption?
Well, the historic thing about this report from the Home Office is it's the first time that the Home Office has conceded what the evidence has very widely shown, which is that there is no correlation between repressive drug laws and increased drug use, nor is there a relationship in the converse fashion, as you've seen with the Netherlands and with Portugal. Repressive drug use does not stop repressive drug policy does not stop drug use, and a decriminalised environment does not encourage drug use. This is what we've seen very clearly from two very different countries.
So you think there should be some change in government policy?
Yes,
very clearly, without any shadow of a doubt.